In this video, we're going to take a look at what happens when a company raises debt and then pays off debt. So you're probably familiar with what exactly debt is, but just to recap, debt is something that always shows up on the liabilities and shareholders' equity side of the balance sheet. There are a couple different types of debt. A revolver is sort of like a credit card for a company that lets them borrow money for short-term purposes. Long-term debt is more debt that they're going to borrow, say, to finance a factory or to acquire another company, or when a private equity firm acquires them in a leveraged buyout, for example. So there are a number of different types of debt. The details for this type of accounting question are not important. You just need to know how the accounting treatment works, which is actually the same no matter what type of debt you're dealing with. So what's going to happen here, I'm just going to go up to the top under interview questions, and I'm going to go over to long-term debt changes by, and I'm going to enter in 100 right here. So here's what happens. On the income statement, as you can see, nothing changes. Now, one quick point I want to mention here is that when you get a question like this in an interview, you should confirm with them that if they say something like, if debt goes up by 100 or debt goes up by 10, what happens? Confirm with them that they want what happens immediately afterward. So not a year in the future or 2 years in the future or 3 years in the future, because immediately after debt is issued, nothing ever happens. It's only after a period of time passes that interest expense shows up on the income statement. So just confirm that before answering any questions. But in this example, we're working under the assumption that it's immediately after debt has been issued. So in this case, there's not going to be any interest expense on the income statement. Note that even if you raise or pay off debt, neither one of those ever shows up on the income statement. It's only interest expense from the debt that actually shows up on the income statement. So no changes there. On the cash flow statement, no changes on cash flow from operations or from investing. And raising debt is just going to show up under financing activities, and you see it as an addition here. Long-term debt goes up by 100, so this adds to our cash flow, so our total cash is up by 100 at the bottom of our cash flow statement. Now moving over to the balance sheet, so on the asset side, cash is up by 100, and so our total assets are up by 100. On the liabilities and shareholders' equity side, long-term debt here is up by 100, and so total liabilities is up by 100, and total liabilities and shareholders' equity is up by 100 here, and so both sides of the balance sheet balance. And so that's how raising debt actually works. Again, the important point to keep in mind here is that nothing happens on the income statement until a period of time actually passes. Now, to look at the opposite scenario here, so let's say that we've raised this debt and then we decide to pay off this debt. So with this example, once again, we're going to be assuming that no time passes. So we're basically raising the debt and then paying it off immediately. So what I'm going to do here is say that long-term debt changes by negative 100. What this means really is that debt is going down. So once again, there are no changes to the income statement here because we're looking at this the moment immediately after the debt is paid off. So there's no interest expense on the income statement. On the cash flow statement, no changes to cash flow from investing or operations. What happens is that long-term debt going down shows up as a drain to our cash flow, and so cash flow from financing decreases by 100, so our total cash balance is down by 100 because we need to use cash to pay off this debt. On the balance sheet on the asset side, cash is down by 100 because we've used it to pay off the debt, so our total assets are down by 100 here. Then moving down, long-term debt is down by 100 on the liability side, and so total liabilities and shareholders' equity is down by 100, which matches our asset side being down by 100. Now it's a little odd here that long-term debt is negative 100. In reality, this would never actually happen, but this is just for interview and illustrative purposes. So keep in mind that you can never actually have negative 100 of debt. All that's really happening here is that our long-term debt is going down by 100, which is why you see this negative 100 number being reflected here. So that's a quick overview of how raising and paying off debt works. It's a pretty straightforward question overall. The only hitch that could come up is if you're asked to chart what happens over a period of time. And rather than doing that in the same video, we're actually going to address that later on when we get into some multi-step scenarios in these accounting videos. But for now, I just wanted to stay focused on what happens at the moment of impact, the moment when you raise the debt or the moment immediately after you pay off the debt. And in those cases, all that happens is that the cash flow statement and the balance sheet change, but nothing happens on the income statement.